The New York Giants take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for tonight's Monday Night Football matchup. And this short is brought to you by Footballguys.com. Save time, worry less, and win more with us. Tonight's over-under is 50 points, and we most likely get Gronk and Saquon back in action tonight for the first time in a long time. Let's get into the fantasy impact for these playmakers. We're going to start with the quarterbacks, and I'm going to take you over to Footballguys.com here to show you our free tools that you can use to set your lineups week in and week out. This, of course, is fantasy points allowed to each position. You can toggle here on the left. Daniel Jones, let's start with him. Tampa Bay rushing defense is usually strong, but their secondary continues to be their weak spot. Their defense allowed over 470 passing yards and 3 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. If Trevor Siemian and Taylor Heinicke can perform well against this defense, I'd say Daniel Jones has a fairly good, decent shot at a good night tonight, though he's been fairly disappointing overall for fantasy purposes, even as a streamer in one QB league. QB 19 overall on the season. He's thrown for over 250 yards just 3 times this entire season and only has 2 games with more than 1 passing touchdown. No rushing touchdown since week 2, so that upside is kind of taken away. Worth noting, Tampa Bay's defense allows the 13th fewest points to the quarterback position for fantasy since week 6. So tonight he's just a low-end QB2, and you can see those stats here. Tampa Bay, 19.1 points per game. Tom Brady, of course he's in your lineups. He's thrown for 250 or more yards and 2 touchdowns in 7 of 9 games this season. What? He's defying time and aging and doing commercials for Subway. Who would have thought? Not me or us. It's worth noting the Giants are allowing the 11th fewest quarterback points since week 6. They're 11th in pass DVOA, but Brady's one of those few matchup quarterbacks that we have. QB4 overall through week 10 on the season. I just wouldn't expect a locked and loaded top 5 finish for Brady tonight. Moving on to the running backs, the Tampa Bay rushing defense is usually strong, as I mentioned. They've actually given up the 14th most fantasy points per game to running backs since week 6. They'll likely now be without run stuffer Vita Vea, who's doubtful for tonight's contest. So this bodes well for Saquon Barkley's first action since week 5. He's questionable, but it's been reported that he's likely to play barring no pregame setbacks, and you know that. He's game script proof. His volume will always be there, so I'm starting him where I have him tonight. Of course, I'm looking now at our game logs over at footballguys.com by team. I'm going to show you all the stats each week for each player at each position. I love this for setting lineups, looking at the activity week in and week out here. Booker will also be back in the lineup most likely, but we'll probably just spell Saquon, so he's not a great option tonight. Moving over to the Buccaneers, Leonard Fournette has taken control of this backfield. If you look at our snap count summary from footballguys.com for the Tampa Bay Bucs here, he has 60% or more snap share in 5 of Tampa Bay's past 6 games. Of course, you can see no other player really holds a candle to Fournette in this backfield in terms of his usage. It is elite. And the Bucs are averaging an NFL best 5.8 red zone scoring attempts per home game. So Fournette has fantastic odds of getting into the end zone tonight against the Giants rushing defense, giving up the 10th most points to the running back position. They're the worst in the NFC at stopping the run. Fournette has the 7th most carries inside the 20-yard line this season, so he is a lock in your lineups tonight. Moving on to the wide receivers, the Giants have been just decimated at the wide receiver position for weeks now. They'll be without Shepard again, although both Kenny Golladay and Kadarius Toney are going to be back in the lineup tonight. Bucs are giving up the 2nd most fantasy points to the wide receiver position since week 6. I like their matchups tonight. I especially hope we see some Kadarius Toney more involved. His usage is just inexcusable the last couple of weeks. Probably their most electric receiver on the field. Only 5 receptions for under 40 yards. He's been disappointing, but I'm willing to flex him tonight as well as Golladay. The Giants are going to need to throw to keep up, especially if Saquon for some reason can't be effective on the ground for them. As always, Darius Slayton just a dart throw in deeper leagues. For the Bucs, Antonio Brown is out another week. So Evans and Godwin managers, you will still benefit from Antonio Brown's absence. The Giants are middle of the pack against wide receivers, giving up the 14th most points to the wide receiver positions. Looking at Mike Evans here. Mike Evans, here's a stat for you. Despite catching just 10 passes in his last 3 games, he has 5 touchdowns. 3 touchdowns in the week 7. So Expect this insane production to regress a bit, but I wouldn't count him out for scoring again tonight. He's in your lineup. Chris Godwin has come in clutch over the last 3 games, 7 or more receptions in each game, the wide receiver 7 overall in that time span. He leads the Buccaneers receiving corps and targets, receptions, and receiving yards in that time span. His volume is a lot safer than Evans, so he's a fantastic start tonight. Worth noting, he's cheaper in DFS for tonight too, so I'd take my shot there. For the tight ends, Evan Engram, he should have been performing with so many star wide receivers out for the Giants, but he just hasn't even cracked the top 15 tight ends overall since week 4. He's fairly unreliable, though. He posted team highs in receptions and yards last week, but that was only 3 receptions for 38 yards. So, I mean, he's just a little bit unreliable. Bucs are giving up the 14th fewest fantasy points to tight ends since week 6. If you have to pivot to Engram tonight for any reason, you close your eyes and hope for the best, which coincidentally is the same game plan Engram uses every single game, week in and week out. So good luck there. Gronk for the Bucs is set to make his return tonight for his action since week 3. Those injuries just piled up, but it didn't slow the Bucs down too much. So Brady's been missing Gronk. I'm a bit wary starting Gronk if he's back. I'm tempering those expectations a bit. This game could get out of hand quite early. And New York Giants are giving up the 3rd fewest amount of points to the tight end position since week 6, so they're fairly strong there. As always, head on over to footballguys.com to use these awesome free tools here like SnapShare, game logs, and so much more to set your perfect lineup. Thank you for watching, and good luck with your matchups tonight.